not Shara Tshuva. Yeah. No, we're gonna take one. We're gonna take one, so we're gonna have to figure it out. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, so where do we leave off? Okay, so Chafal of base. We did the Mishna, right? Let me switch. Hold on a second. Let me. Just switching devices, sorry. Okay, so we did the Mishnah yesterday of who's you're not allowed to write it. First, the Mishnah started with you're not allowed to write a get when it's still attached to the ground. Yeah, but and then the Mishnah says that if you write it when it's attached to the ground, so you detach it, then you sign it, and then you could give it. Right? But Rabbi Yehuda said it's possible until the kesuba and the chasima is detached. Fine. That's what the Mishnah said. So the Mishnah seems to have a stira, right? So let's see the Gemara, yeah? On Chof Aleph and Beis, about 10, 12 lines up. So kosher al-mechuber. Right, so what did it say? You said you're allowed to write get when it's attached to the ground. But the Reisha said you're not allowed to write a get when it's attached to the ground. What it means is that when you're writing the shtar when it's attached, you have to leave over the toirif. Right? Every shtar has a toirif and a toifis. Right? So the toirif is the main information that's in the shtar. Here we're talking about a get, which is the place, the man, the woman, and the time. Right? The typhus is just all the information that's in there, but the facts of the case are in the toirif. So it's talking about you have to leave the toirif when it says you can write the get when it's still attached to the ground. That's if you leave over the toirif, which is the main information that's inside the get. You have to leave over the makam toirif to be able to write that once it's detached from the tree. It's talking about where, again, they all three say somewhere where you left off the toirif. Rabbi Elazar and it's going according to Rabbi Elazar, who we had a few times and we're going to have many times. The Amar Edim Mesira Karti. Rabbi Elazar holds that the Edim that watch the get Mesira from the word musar, from the word handing off, right? The main edus is to watch the get be handed from the man to the woman. The signatures is not the main edus on the get. Now, how this manifests itself is, okay, so then what is, when the Torah says v'kasav, when you have to write a get, so now, according to Rabbi Elazar, how does he understand v'kasav? Right? If he holds that the main edus of a get is to watch the get be handed over to the wife, so then that's now what have to do with v'kasav? Right? Tell him what he has to learn something with the word v'kasav. So Rameir holds that the main edus on the get is the signatures. So he says v'kasav means the signatures. But according to Rabbi Elazar, who says the main edus of the get is watching it being handed over, so then what does he do with v'kasav? So Elamai, he has to learn that v'kasav means that the get itself has to be written properly. Right? So the Mela, our Mishnah is talking about going to Rabbi Elazar. He says, Eidim Mesira Karti, V'achad Komer, and this is what the Mishnah is saying. Ein kais and typhus. You shouldn't even write the typhus, which again, we said the typhus is just what the shtar is all about, but it doesn't have any of the practical information, meaning the name, his name, her name, the zman, where it's taking place. Shema yichtei Torah. But you shouldn't even do that. You shouldn't write the typhus, which is the non-main part of the get. because you may end up writing the main part when it's attached. Kosher l'toifus, but if you did write the toifus, the talshu, and then you detached it from the ground, kosher l'toirif, then you just write the then you wrote the toirif, then you gave it there, kosher, it's kosher. So meaning b'di'evet, it's okay if you wrote the toirif not on the tree. But lechatchila, we don't want you to do it. Right? Fine. So so that's what the Mishnah means when the first part says you shouldn't write it in mechuber. That's true, you shouldn't. But if you did, then it's okay. That's essentially what we're saying, and it's going according to Rabbi Elazar, who says the main edus of a get is to watch it being handed over, and therefore he has to learn because of means it's going on the actual get, so the get should be written properly, which means it should not be written when it's attached to the tree or whatever it's attached to. That's one mahalach. Reish Lakish Amar chasmu shaninu. Right? It's talking about with the chasima, when the Mishnah says that you're not allowed to write a get when it's attached. That's talking about the signatures. For a mayor, and it's going to a mayor, the Amar Eidi Chasima Karti, it's going according to the mayor who holds that the main witnesses are the ones that sign. Aim Kaisvan Tairif. You're not supposed to write the Tairif on the, and of course, if you don't write the Tairif, if you don't, well, no. Right, no, you don't even write the Tairif, which is not the main thing, because according to Rabbi Elazar, it is the main thing, the Tairif. But according to Rameir, the main thing is the signatures. So ain't Kaisvan Tairif, because they're afraid that you might sign it when it's still on the tree, which you're not allowed to do. Kosvul Tairif, but if you did write the Tairif, Talshu, Chasmu, V'nasnula, and then you detached it and signed it and gave it to her, then it's kosher. So again, according to Reish Lakish, the pshat is that lechatchila we don't want you putting even the tairif and on when it's on the tree, because we're afraid that you can end up signing it on the tree too. If you did it, as long as you didn't sign it when it was attached, then you're going to be okay. So they're essentially the same pshat in the Mishnah. Just one is going with written and that maybe you're going to use the typhus. And the second shot is Reish Lakish is going
to maybe I'll use the tyrif.
What?
The typhus is the boilerplate. The tyrif is the case specific.
Correct. Right. So he's afraid. So according to Rabbi Elazar, who holds Eidem Mesira Karti, he holds that the tyrif has to be written when it's detached from the ground. The typhus could be written when it's attached. But he's afraid that if you're going to allow, it's very like I got it mixed up with it 10 times already. Right? So you might get mixed up and say, okay, which one is it that you write a thing? The typhus and this and that. So Mameli says, don't write it when it's attached to you. If you did, b'di'evet, it's going to be okay. And Rameir says, and Reish Lakish says it's going according to Rameir, and he has the same thing, except he's worried about the tairif and the signature. Rabbi Elazar wasn't worried about the signature. Okay, fine. I had a Maisa today with I wanted to see how Atlantic Beach is spelled in the kesuba. So a guy told me, oh, this guy got married in Atlantic Beach. So why don't you ask him for a copy of his kesuba, how they spelled it? I said, Gesundheit. I text the guy, can I get a copy of the kesuba? He says, sure, I'm going to look for it. Divali can't find this kesuba. So now I said, I'm sorry to do this to you, but you got a problem now. It wasn't my intention. Anyways, fine.
You have to know where it is.
No, but you have to have one. If you don't know where it is, that means it could be it's thrown in the garbage, right?
But why are we worrying about him finding it? She's the one who has to find it.
That's true. That is true. But he can't stay beyichud with her if they don't have a kesuba.
So let her find it while he goes out
for
making coffee. He'll go out for pizza and beer, and she'll find it.
They're looking.
Yaakov Tati spelled it in Hebrew on the invitation.
Oh yeah, I should use it the way for him, right? I guess it's for his. He's the only one that's going to care, so maybe I should just use his the way he did it, right?
Use his lashon. He wrote Atlantic Beach, New York in Hebrew.
Oh, did he? So send me the invitation, please. And yeah, I don't know if it's a raya, but anyways, okay, right. Kosvu al it's a new sugya now.
It's the same, right? You want to get married in the same.
Yeah. So kosvu al cheres shall otzitz nakuv kosher. If a guy, we continue. David Spar is not on. We continue with the brilliant people with all their kunz of trying to do oddball gittin. Right. So kosvu al cheres shall otzitz nakuv. He wrote it on the earthenware of a flower pot that has a hole in it. Now, with flower pots that have holes in it and flower pots that don't have holes in it, there's a big difference in halacha. If it has a hole in it, it's considered like it's attached to the ground. If it doesn't have a hole in it, then it's considered that it's not attached to the ground. Right? So we just said that we have this whole sugya about whether you should or should not write gittin when they're attached to the ground. So here it is that he didn't write it on the tree, he wrote it on the flower pot that has a hole in it. He wrote the get on the flower pot that's made out of cheres, right? So kosher, that's kosher. Why? The shakale v'yavle the heli, because he could just take the pot and give it to her, right? Meaning, what did we say in yesterday on the top of the daf? We said, what's wrong? What's wrong with when you're cutting off the animal's the horn, right? So what's the problem? Because there's like a hefsek between the writing and the giving over. So same thing with tearing off the leaf is also the same thing. It could be a hefsek. But here, when it's in a flower pot, what's the big deal? There's no hefsek. You just pick up the flower pot that has the get written on it. You just give it over to her. So there's no hefsek there. But let's say he wrote it on a leaf that's in an otzutz that's nakub. So Abai Amar kosher, Rav Amar pasul. And Abai says kosher, Rav says pasul. Abai Amar kosher. Now we start today's daf. The shakale v'yavle lehele, because he could take it. He just takes the flower pot and gives it to her. Rav Amar pasul. Rav says it's pasul gezeira shema yiktoim. Now there's a gezeira that maybe he's going to cut off the leaf, meaning he's going to write the get on the leaf, and then he's going to cut it off and give it to her, which we said already is no good because that's a hefsek. Now you're saying, well, if you write a get on a notepad, is that a hefsek to rip it off the notepad and give it? Right? Is that a hefsek? Right. So
Taisus deals with something a little similar to that, with a larger piece of cloth that you cut it to a smaller piece. And he says there was a big shiloh in the Rishayim at the time. It was a big shiloh in the Paiskim, whether it's kosher or not.
But because it acts as
it's a shiloh that's considered a hefsek or not. It's similar.
Right. So
if you're tearing a piece of paper off something else, wouldn't that be the same idea?
Yeah, it would be the same idea. But meaning, what's the issue here? Here, it's attached to the ground. Since it's nakuv, but since it has a hole in it, so therefore, it's attached to. It looks like it's attached to the ground. So it has a din of a real leaf, even though it's in a flower pot. Right. So that's why this is a little bit more chomer. Gershon was getting worried. So
I'm just not feeling great.
All right, Refuah Shalem. Fine. Now the Gemara goes through a whole thing of this is for Simon, really. So this is planting and all that. Okay, so otzitz shall.
Can I ask where we're holding?
Yes, we just started today's daf, the second line down, because we ended yesterday a little right after the Mishna.
Just so I don't discriminate against Byron or anybody else, we're doing Gittin.
Why is you're muted, Rabban? You're muted. Rabban, you're muted.
Eretz, I held myself back. I was in Tel Geshen Kuf Gimel Amud Aleph, 4 lines down. I held myself back.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. So atzitz shel echad uzroim shel achad. If the atzitz, meaning the flower pot, was from one person, and the seeds that are in the flower pot go to another person. Belong to another person. Machar bal atzitz lebal zroim. So then they decide to do a deal. Why should there be a partnership? One guy owns the flower pot, and one guy owns the seeds. He decides to sell it to him, right? So if the owner of the flower pot sold it to the seeds, kimin shemashach kana. So then when he picks up the pot, that's where you do a kinyan, right? Hagbah or mashicha. then he's kinda the pot. Yeah. So
Talking
Mamela,
about
he owned.
Agba, why
Yeah.
does the Gemara use Mashach here? The normal kinyan for an upset would be Agba.
Right. Yes, I'm not sure. Maybe because they thought that it's heavy. Flower pot, maybe it's heavy, and it's not the greatest shot, not the greatest shot in the world. But yeah. So Kivan Shemashach Kana. So since once he does a Mashicha, so now until now he owned the seeds, and now he owns the whole flower pot. Fine. What about the opposite? Machar Baal Zroyim, the Baal Otzitz. Let's say the Baal Zroyim, the owner of the seeds, is selling it to the owner of the flower pot, like Kana, Yachzik Bizroyim. Then it's looked like it's karka. It's looked at as if it's karka. So therefore, karka, you cannot be koina a field by picking it up or doing mashicha. So how do you do karka? You make a chazak on it. Either you build a fence around it, or you dig it, or something like that. So here, the owner of the flower pot who's buying this rayim has to actually do something to the flower pot in order to be koina it, right? Because again, we're looking at this flower pot that it has the din of the ground, right? This is very negain. It's Yisrael. Flower pots, when you grow vegetables in the flower pots, shmita in flower pots, if they have holes in them, even if they're on cement, right? Even if they're on cement, they still look like somehow that it gets nourishment from the ground.
How far down is karka?
What do you mean? How far
Does it go
down?
down? That's called karka?
You mean, yeah, you mean how much do you own down?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like if you want to dig a tunnel under your friend's property, like can you do that? Rishus HaYachid, it goes till 10 tefachim, right?
So I'm saying the 10 tefachim, so you could have let's say you want to you can move a whole bunch of karka with a machine, 10 tefachim.
Yeah, so that would be.
When I dig down to China. At some point, it comes less wood burn. It comes more China.
That would be digging, but wouldn't that be digging? Wouldn't that be considered chazaka? No.
Daf is the host now.
Okay, there you go. Fine. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that would be considered digging, Rabbanan. So maybe you already have a chazaka. You're saying maybe if you push the dirt.
No, I'm not sure what I'm saying. I'm thinking again of let's say artificial turf. So you in one piece you can pick up the whole thing for 300, a whole acre.
I hear. So, but that's artificial though.
That's what's on top of that's what the guy has on his grist.
I hear.
On his top of his karka.
Well, it's an interesting shaila. Is artificial turf viewed as metaltalin or karka? The Zoram are called karka because they grow in the ground. They need the soil, the earth, to grow.
That's only
karka.
Because it's only because the pot has a hole in it. If the pot wouldn't have a hole in it, it would not be. It would be considered metaltalin, I think.
With the Zoram,
regular grist, they put that in joint strips also.
Right, they're called sod.
Yeah, sod. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
Gershon. I'm saying if it doesn't have holes in the flower pot, so then
I don't think it would make a difference. The Zoram are always considered mechuber lekarka. They need the karka to grow.
I hear.
The karka itself might be tallish, but it still has a din karka.
Okay, maybe. I understood it that it was only with the hole. Mamela, it's considered karka. All right, whatever it is, fine. Those are the basic cases. Then
Where's Simon with the mushrooms?
I don't know. He got his face
I'm
on.
here. I'm just listening.
All right.
Maybe he ate some mushrooms tonight. Who knows?
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Shayashik in the old days.
There you go.
No, but Lamaisa, if it's not perforated in the bottom, it's not considered. I don't believe it's considered karka, because even by shvius, they don't consider it a din shvius if it's grown in an unperforated pot. So I for whatever reason that it doesn't. I don't believe it considers it karka.
That's what I thought.
It's the same reason why you can grow like hydroponically, because it's just not attached. It doesn't have It doesn't have any attachment to the ground. Even if you throw dirt in there, it's not gonna. It's not the same. It doesn't get its nourishment from the
Do you
ground.
make a shahako on any of your hydroponic stuff?
I think Reverend Friday actually says that there is a shiloh on certain things, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the hydroponics is a big shiloh. What bracha to make on the hydroponics?
What's
Yeah.
hydroponic?
It's not
The
grown in.
Shvi is Shaila and the hydroponics are really a little bit.
It's grown in water,
It could still
Naftali.
be karka.
Yeah,
Well,
Tastes the same?
it's grown
a
in
lot of
water.
the peppers and kolsev are hydroponically grown. That's what it says on the box.
What do you mean? The lettuce Meretz Yisrael, half the lettuce Meretz Yisrael used to be hydroponics. I don't know if it still is.
It's a big shiloh whether you make a shahako on the hydroponics. Yeah. I thought the default is that you do say shahako.
And you don't even know if you buy it?
Zalman was
Look at
asking.
who looks at boxes? You go and buy and you leave.
Yeah.
I don't. Didn't they compare it to the Shiloh they asked for Shlomo Zalman about orange juice and chocolate?
Did they compare it to that?
Yeah, I think they compared it to it. It said, "Lamais, you're not mashana the brachas. Minig is not to. You don't change."
I hear.
But this with karka, something can be karka and not have a dinner.
Rabbi Body says, he says a different bracha on chocolate. No, so
Yeah, there are rabbanim that say that. I'm saying Shlomo Zalman said not. That's all.
okay.
There's a Diane Krause in England. He's a huge baki in halach. He holds that the bracha should be shahako, but when he went to ask for Shlomo Zalman, that's what Shlomo Zalman told him. So he was masking.
I hear.
Did we
Okay.
even start today's daf yet?
Yes, we're a few lines in. Don't worry, Parrots. Turn Talmud Bays. You don't be so concerned.
Parrots, take another drink. We'll be all right.
We got married.
This-
Come on, we got 20
Still waiting
minutes.
for
This
this
business.
That's right. He didn't have a see him. Parrots was cheated out of a l'chaim. So don't make fun.
Okay, weiter. That's the first two cases. The guy with the flower pot selling it to the guy who owns the seeds, and the other one, the second case is the seeds selling. I'm sorry, that was the first case. Whatever. But one case is seeds to the flower pot, and one is the flower pot to the seeds. Fine. But let's say the guy owns the flower pot and the seeds, and he's selling the whole deal to somebody else. So if he is machzik in the zrayim, like we said, he has to do something to the seeds, either dig it up or do something. Then he's kind of the flower pot too. This is very interesting. Belongings that have no achrayas, which is just a code word for anything movable, like jewelry and these type of things. Niknin im nechasim sheyesh ben achrayas. You can be kinda with nechasim that has achrayas, which is usually something that's attached to the ground. The kesef ubishtar ubechazaka, by either with money or a shtar, or with doing a chazaka, or all three, right? And that's how you kinda karka. When you kind of karka that way, you can also simultaneously be kind of anything that you decide that goes agav karka. We do this in the mechiras chametz. Right? One of the kinyanim we do in mechiras chametz is that we rent the guy the rabbi selling the chametz rents the guy a room in his house, and agav the kinyan that the guy does with the room in the house, which he doesn't do chazaka, but he does kesef, and he does shtar. Agav that room, all the people's chametz, which is metaltalin, obviously chametz is movable, gets sold through the kinyan on the karka of the rabbi.
What's so special about kinyan agav? Don't you have a kinyan chutz every single time you buy the karka anyways? Or are you saying kinyan agav even if it's not in the room?
Correct.
In this case, you don't even need
there.
to come on to kinyan agav. You just say it's
Correct.
kinyan chutz.
Yeah, it's you don't have to have the stuff in the karka. It could be a different place. It can be in a different place. Once you're kind of karka from the guy, so you're kind of that too. So it comes out here. What's the problem, Gershon?
I don't think Kinyan Chutzner would work here. Kinyan Chutzner works when I own a Chutzner and someone put something inside that Chutzner.
Yes,
Here,
that's
I don't think we'd say Gita v'yadei boin ke'echad with Kinyan Chutzner. I don't think.
Right.
we
No,
would
so
say
this
that.
is not kinyan chutz.
Right. Only Agav would work with this.
Right. Yeah. So again, but what's the agav here and what's the main thing? So the main thing here is the dirt that's inside the flower pot. So since he does something to buy the dirt in the flower pot, then the flower pot is considered metaltalin and it goes along with it. But it's such a strange thing because the flower pot is holding the dirt. But we're saying the dirt is the chashuv thing, and the flower pot you kind of because of the dirt. And this is all the chayra because there's a hole in the flower pot. so that the dirt is considered the karka. Right?
So Yaakov, I don't know if this is a question. You can tell me to stop because it's getting late. Is there another category bismanazeh besides metalton and karka? But I'll tell you the example that I think of. When I buy a ticket to the ball game, yeah. So 2 weeks ago I went to a game that I pay half price. So I bought a ticket. She says, "Okay, I'm sending it to your phone." I said, "The only reason I came to you by the window is I want the ticket stub. Don't put it on my phone. Give me a ticket. I want a ticket in my hand." So when you buy it, when they put it on your phone, what is that? It's nothing exists. There's nothing there. They make a charge to your credit card. They send it to your phone, but what they do? So what is that? Is that anything?
Saying, what are you trying to be kind of?
I'm not sure. I don't know the halakhic implication, but is it any? What is it? Is it part of the computer? So it's karka. It's part of a 9,000 pound thing that exists in the cloud. It's a big building in Billings, Montana, or is it? What is it?
Wow, can I add to the question? The other part of the cheshbon too. You're paying presumably electronically.
Right.
Usually a kinyan kesef means that money goes from one hand to the next.
Yeah.
Here it's in a computer somewhere.
Right. Exactly. That's what.
Right. That's it. And that's the whole thing with checks. What's a check? Right. All this type of thing. Okay. It's a good shot. I don't know how it would work.
Okay.
Fine. Then hichsik ba'atzitz. So let's say he makes the chazak on the atzitz. Af atzitz like kana. Then he wasn't even kind of the atzitz. Meaning, if he tries to make a chazaka on the flower pot, right? Meaning he didn't do mashicha, right? He let's say he painted it. So af atzitz like kana. So then he's not even kind of the atzitz. Achi yachsik b'zroyim. He has to do a chazaka on the zroyim. Meaning he's doing the wrong kinyan on the wrong thing. He did a chazaka on the flower pot. So therefore that doesn't work. Fine. Nakfu ba'aretz. Let's say the whole of the flower pot is in Eretz Yisrael. V'noifai b'chutz laaretz, but the branches are in chutz laaretz. Right. So this flower pot sitting mamish right on the edge, right on the border. Right. But ends up being the way you have access to the branches is that's in chutz laaretz. So Abaya Omar Basar Nakva Hazinam. Abaya says we go wherever the hole is. Since the hole is what's giving the nutrients, so therefore it's considered an Eretz Yisrael. Rabba Amar Basar Nakva Hazinam. We go with the branches, right? Because what's the pshat? This is Mamish Simon. I don't know where you stand on this Machlokes, but the pshat is one is saying the main nutrients come from the ground. And it seems like the other one will say that it comes more from the air, right? So that's basically what their machlokes is. Yeah, let's see.
That's the reason, because the nutrients come from the air, or because the rishus they're in. For example, if I had something in rishus yachid and the fruit grew into rishus rabim, halacha l'maisa, I think we hold that anyone's allowed to take them.
What if it hangs on to rishus rabim? Correct.
Right. So l'maisa, the fruit is in chutz laaretz.
Yeah, but that doesn't. We're not talking about choshen mishpat here.
No, but if in choshen mishpat that would be the case, why in hilchos maestros that could also be the case? I could hear such a svara.
I know, but
the fruit.
It's a right, but it's about what's giving the nutrients here. It's not.
Yeah, Rashi says because that's where it's yainit from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's the basar nikvay. Look at the next Rashi. Basar nikvay.
Basar nikvay doesn't discuss it.
Well, let's discuss it, but
that's what it says the chutz laaretz, because they're in chutz laaretz. The fruit.
No, we're going to see because the
physically
Gemara,
in chutz laaretz.
The Gemara is going to say. Let's wait for the Gemara weiter. So, but the ashrush, when it took shayrish, when it planted, right? Meaning, there were also roots outside the hole into Eretz Yisrael that kuli amalei pligi. Everybody holds that once the roots go through that hole and are firmly planted inside the ground, right? Then everybody holds that it's Eretz Yisrael. No matter where the roots did not go outside of the flower pot. That's one. So they're going to the Gemara says, but Ashur Shlei Pligin, there's no machlokes when it grows into the ground. What's not shtei ganas? If you have two gardens, zu al gav zu, one on top of the other. Now it doesn't mean that it's being grown like one mamish, like they have the indoor things where you could have trays of things growing. It's talking about where it's on like it's built into the mountain, so it's flat, then it goes down and then flat again, and one is owned by one and one's owned by the other. The yerek pain time, and you have this vegetable that's growing in between them. Right? So basically, the ground is coming from the top garden, and they're growing out over the bottom garden. So if you go with the same shiloh, if you go with the air, so then it belongs to the bottom garden. If you go with the nutrients from the dirt, so it goes with the top. Yeah. So what's the shot? So Rameir Amishal Elyon. Rameir says it goes to the upper because it's getting its food, its nourishment's coming from the dirt. It's the tachnan, right? Which Rashi says here, Azlinon Basar knife. You go with the branch, wherever the branch is, right? So you see that they should have a machlokes even when the plant is planted inside the ground. There still should be a machlokes where the main nutrients are coming from. Is it coming from the ground? Is it coming from the air? So when answers, that's not a kasha. There it said a reason. Let's say the top guy would come and take away his dirt. Ain kan yerek, you have no vegetable. Meaning the top guy says to the bottom guy, you know what, you really think that your airspace of your lower garden is making this thing grow? Okay, so let's see what happens when I take the dirt away. You have nothing. Right? So then that's one way of looking at it. Rabbi Yehuda, but let's say the bottom guy would want to fill up his garden to make it on an equal level with the upper one. And kan yorok, so he's going to end up burying his vegetable. Right? So therefore, each one has competing reasons why it is. And in this situation, it should belong to each one. But this has no right. This is nothing. This has nothing to do with Trumas and Mises. This is not going to help us with Trumas and Mises. What are you saying?
These two reasons are also kind of choshen mishpat reasons, because I can get rid of it. It's in my rishus. They're both saying the same thing.
All right, fair enough. Okay. So Gemara says, "Vakati b'da'ashur shloi pligi." And are you saying that when it did take plant, it's not, they don't argue about Tanya Elon Miktsasi Baratz Miktsasi B'chutzars. You have a tree. Part of the tree is in Eretz Yisrael, part of the tree is in Chutzlaretz. Right? Meaning the trunk of the tree is half in and half out. So Tevel, B'chulin Mu'rav and Zebazeh. So you have a cholent. You mamish have a cholent. It's Tevel and it's Chulin. Meaning if it's part of Eretz Yisrael, so then you have to take off Chumas and Maisus. If it's from Chutzlaretz, you don't have to. So we're saying that it's both. Right? What's a nafkamina? So the nafkamina is, Rashi says, is that you can't take meiser from it. You can't use it for meiser and say, oh, I'm going to use some of the vegetables that grow on this tree as chumas and meisers for something else. Right? That you can't do. Right? Because it's from a chiyuv on a patur. Anyway, so that's what Divrei Rebbe. Rebbe holds it's a cholent. Whichever part that grows in the chayav area, meaning in Eretz Yisrael, so then that has the din of Eretz Yisrael. And the one that grows in the potter part is potter. Right? So he's saying like you literally split the tree. What grows on the Eretz Yisrael side, take off Chumas and Maises. What grows on the Chutzlaretz side, you don't. My love. Isn't it miktsas noifai ba'eretz or miktsas noifai b'chotzars? Are we not talking about where part of the branch is in Eretz Yisrael and part of the branch is in Chutzlaretz? So we say no, loy miktsas shroshim ba'eretz. Some of the roots are in Eretz Yisrael, or miktsas shroshim b'chutzlaretz, and some of the roots are in Chutzlaretz. Right? So that's and it's going with the roots. So my time, what does Rav Shimon Gamliel say that? You split the tree, and whatever grows on the Eretz Yisrael side has kedusha, and whatever grows in Chutzlaretz does not. The mafsik Sunma. The reason we're talking about where there's a rock, it's growing on a rock. The tree is actually growing on a rock. Oh, Reb Shai Novak sent me a picture.
Shia, I was just going to say, Shia found it this morning by the Shia. I'm perfect. Yeah. He
So
sent it to you.
He sent it to me. Yeah, I got to put it on the. Yeah, 6 a.m. I got it from him. right after the shir. So so it grew on a rock. So it's not getting its nourishment from the ground, although the Chazanish seems to say that when it grows on cement.
No, the roots are in the ground.
The roots are in the ground, but it grows around the cement. So what are you going to say? So you're going to say that that each you can't say it's mixed. So you have to say that the roots from the side of Eretz Yisrael, from Eretz Yisrael, the roots are on the side of Chutz and Chutz. Okay, my time with the Rebbe. And why does Rebbe say that each thing is considered tevel and trumas and maises? The Hadri Arvi, because he says what happens is it all goes back and gets mixed up. Right? Meaning, yes, part of the nutrients are coming from one part of the rock, and the other part of the nutrients are coming from the other side of the rock. But they mix with the tree trunk, and then the it's back to a chunt.
It sounds like a real mitziistic thing.
It sure does. It sure does. Right, that's the next machlokes. But Michael, what's the
it sounds like Efshel something, or not?
My brain is going to be mitzumtzum from this. Yeah, so one says that the air, right? But it doesn't really mean air, meaning it means the wood, the tree. What's it called? Not the bark, the trunk. The trunk mixes up all the nutrients again. It says no, each one sticks to its side. I mean, you're talking about the Akiva, you're 100% right. We're talking about some serious mitzias or science machlokes here, whether a fruit on one side of the tree is considered that it gets its nutrients strictly from that side, and it does not go over to the other side.
So nowadays, if you're able to actually drill into the science of it, what would the halacha be? Like, you could probably ask a botanist or whatever it is exactly how this stuff works. They probably could give you a scientific explanation.
In my backyard, half of it's dead, the other half grows apples.
The what?
I have an apple tree in my backyard. Half of it's dead. The other half grows apples.
Is that so?
You'd have to know which roots are dead. The same side as the half that is not growing, or the other side, or anywhere.
Neither. When it gets unfoggy, I'll take pictures.
Oh, you can see which roots are dead?
You can see which half is dead and like totally dead.
No, you can see which half is not growing, which half is. But can you see which roots are supplying which side?
No, finish the dentist.
That's the issue here. Which roots are supplying which nutrients?
I hear it, but it's interesting, Pat. You mean if one science proves it? I don't know, Akiva. Then you get into some serious
it's a valid question. It's like I don't know if they had necessarily the scientific explanation back then, but there's probably more of a scientific explanation nowadays in terms of how trees are nourish itself and how, if that's true that it could go through and go back or whatever they're saying here.
Well, even back then, I would imagine it's relatively easily provable.
I don't know.
Did you say an apple tree?
Kill the roots on half the side, half the tree.
Yeah, but Avir Mavalbal, they couldn't prove. How are you going to prove that?
It doesn't mean air. It means
they wouldn't
whatever
have Machlokes.
I don't know. Okay, let's go back to it. It's a little late. Fine. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Omer. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said that you can't write a get on parchment that was erased. Maybe it has to be fresh parchment, and no writing on diphthera. So Gimel Oiresein. There's 3 types of skins. Literally means 3 types of parchments. Right? Matzah, chayfa, and diphthera. Matzah kemashmoi. Matzah is like the mashma, like from the word matzah. The loy meliach, the loy kamiach, the loy ofetz. It was not salted. It had no flour on it. and it didn't have any gall nuts on. It seems like what would you call it? Natural. What's a rawhide? I guess no, but what do you call right? It's organic, right? Organic cloth, nothing going on, pure, unadulterated cloth, right? So my hilchasa, what's the difference, right? Meaning, what's the why do why do these things have different shiurim for their sizes? So for Laitzah Shabbos, the reason is for how much you're going to be chayiv on carrying in a Shabbos. But we know that in Hilchos Shabbos, you're not chayiv for carrying anything in every. You're only chayiv when you carry a certain minimum amount, like every other malach. So each one of these has a different measurement for carrying on Shabbos. So kama shiurei, and how much is the shear for this matzah cloth? It's not called cloth, matzah or. In order to wrap it around some sort of small weight. The kama, and how much is that? It's a quarter of the smallest measurement that's in pumpadisa. Okay. Chayfa is the meliach v'loy kamiach v'loy ofet. So chayfa has one. It's salted, but it doesn't have flour and it doesn't have the gall nuts. So Shabbos. The kamish yurik kedetanan or kedei lasis kamiyah enough or the amount of or to be chayav on for carrying outside in the Rishus Harama on Shabbos is the amount to make a what do you call it? Kamiyah, an amulet. Diftera, the maliach for kamiyach v'loy ofet. So diftera, it has the salt and has the flour, it doesn't have the gall nuts. The ma'ilchusa, what's the halacha? Let's saw Shabbos. The kamish yurai kedei. The shear for that is enough to write a get on it. That would be. So I don't know exactly how much you need to write a get. And Rashi points out, okay, what happens if it has all three? Right? We only had three options here, right? But one of the options was not if it has all three. So Rashi, that's mamash a klaf. That's a real klaf. Right? And that there, on Shabbos, the shear for that would be to write tefillin. To write it the smallest part of tefillin. Fine. But the Chachamim have no problem with this this klaf, right? Man Chachamim, who's the Chachamim? Amar Elazar, Altamid Beis now. Relief, right? 9:28, and we're almost done on the Beis, right? Rebbe Elazar it's going according to Rebbe Elazar again. Rebbe Elazar holds Eidei Mesira Karti. The Amar Eidei Mesira Karti. He holds that Eidei Mesira gives it. So meaning, this is a whole complicated thing, hence the length of the Mefarshim here. Basically, Rebbe Elazar holds Eidei Mesira. So really, the Eidim are handing over of the get is the most important part. So Memela, we don't really care what's going on inside the get. It's erased, not erased. It could have been forged, not forged. If you see the guy write the get and you hand it over in front of Eidim, gesundheit, that's the thing. We don't pay much attention to, at least to the signatures, to the actual writing. The actual writing is a little bit more of a concern. So let's see. So anyways, we're going to Rebbe Elazar who says Eidim Mesira Kati. Now here's also Rebbe Elazar. Now this Rebbe Elazar is the Amoira, because otherwise it sounds like Rebbe Elazar is talking about himself, right? The first Rebbe Elazar of Eidei Mesira Karti is the Tana, right? Rebbe Elazar, and this Rebbe Elazar is the Amoira. Lo yichshir Rebbe Elazar ela la'alter. When Rebbe Elazar said that the get is okay if it's accepted, if it's a used get, I guess, or erased, whatever it is. That's only if it happened right away. But from now until 10 days, I'm sorry, I ran on sentence. But from there until 10 days, right? Meaning, as long as it wasn't, we had this a few while ago, as long as it wasn't right away, then it's no good. Why? Because with Chayshid, maybe there were Tanoim in the get, which would have to be temporary Tanoim, like we learned in yesterday's daf, because a permanent Tanoim means the whole get is not kosher. And maybe he was Mezayif or she was Mezayif it. Right? And now the Eidim, when we go to the get, we go to the Eidim and say, hey, did she write this get 10 days ago? And they say, yeah. And then they look at the get and they forgot, there was a Tanai in there, but since it's 10 days later, they forgot about the Tanai. right? Or even if it was more than just the day, that day, or it doesn't say exactly how many hours, but it wasn't immediately after they say the get was written, then that's not acceptable. That's according to Rabbi Elazar. Even from now until 10 days, the im isa the hava beit tanai, because if there would be a tanai, they would remember. Adam are going to remember whether there's a tanai. It's also akiva. It's like an interesting mitzias machlokes. Like what? Well, they're going to remember. They're not going to remember. Right. So Rabbi Elazar is concerned they're not going to remember the tanai, and Rabbi Yochanan is not concerned for that. Fine. Rabbi Elazar, and then another.
Well, it could be Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar are arguing about whether they need to know what's written in the get.
Okay, maybe.
I mean, we had already, they could only see the first line. The first line wouldn't have a Tanai anyway.
Right. Okay, maybe. I don't know. Not sure. And he said this only by Gittin. But by other shtaras, not. Right? By other shtaras, he would not say that you can use the erased paper. The sieve. Put it into an earthenware kli that it should be for many days. Right? This is talking about by Yirmiyah, right? And he bought a field, right before the Galus to Bavel, and he said to write, make sure you put the star inside an earthenware kli like this. It'll stay for a long time, right? So you see that you have to have a star that's able to last a long time, and that it can't be forged, right? Fine. Rabbi Yochanan says even by shtaras, we don't have to worry about it. Didn't he say that? Didn't Yirmiyah say that he wants to make sure it lasts a long time? Hasam eitza toiva kamashma. So Rabbi Yochanan says that wasn't telling him that it has to last a long time. He was saying that it's an eitza toiva. Yeah. Fine. Let's do a little bit more. Yeah. You going to mine? I don't know if it's going to start on time. They have a big scene there. Okay. I'll call kosher and lift up again. Everybody's kosher to write again. Even the deaf and the shait and a katan, they can all write the get. Ha'isha, a woman could write her get for her. Obviously, then she has to give it to the man, and then the man has to give it back to her. And a man could write the receipt for the kesuba, because the kiyam get is only with the signatures. So since it's only with the signatures, therefore the woman could write the get and then give it over to the husband. So Gemara asks, how could a cheres shaita and cotton write a get? They don't have any das. So Rav Huna, that's true. They need to have a gadol there watching them, right? To make sure that they do it lishma, right? Some of the Rav Nachman Elamiyata, Yisrael, you have a guy writing a get, and Yisrael standing on top of him, Hachanami, the kosher. That would also be kosher. B'chitem Hachanami, you're going to say, yeah, it will be kosher. Vatanya, Oivik, Kechavim, Pasul. A guy is Pasul, so why can't you have a yid stand over him? So he says, Oivik, Kechavim, L'daite, the Nafshei of it. A guy has his own das, so he doesn't care that the yid's standing over him. We're afraid that he may not be doing the get in the proper way. A cheres shaitan cotton is okay. A guy is not. All right, so this comes into play. It's interesting. Din, can you have a kid toivel kalim for you? Can you have a guy toivel kalim for you?
I guess a kid, if you're there
So,
with him, and a guy, no.
Exactly. So when there's a kid, you're allowed to have a kid toivel kalim, but you have to be watching him. Meaning, if you don't want to get out of the car, right, which is me, so I send in my kids, and then I watch them through the window. If I watch them through the window, then it's okay, right? Even though a kid did it. But if the kid did it on his own, we don't trust that he did it correctly, right? By a guy cannot be toivel kalim. I think we come out that the guy cannot toivel even if you're watching them. Or do maybe we say that? Now I'm doubting myself. What?
I think it works.
I think it does work with a guy.
But that's different. It doesn't need to be lishma. That's the issue.
Right. You're watching as long as you're watching to make sure they do it correctly. That's why I think
by all the restaurants, all the Goyim, all the Hispanic guys are going to the mikvah and with one yid.
Okay, so then I think by there as long as the shmira from a yid to make sure they do it correctly, then that's fine. Okay, so that's
shita, do you have the same chiluk? What do we pass on Allah for cotton shoifet?
Right.
It works, no?
Yeah.
As long as the gadol lemed al gabla.
I think so. I think so.
I think so too, but the Nachri won't work for the same
Right.
reason.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just finish up with it till the end of the sugya. So okay. So that's what he's saying, that a guy taka would not work because he has his own mind. So no, it's not what I said is not true. To me, the kapasale la become linin haba, and the next mission it says a guy cannot be the shliach to bring it. So mashma mechlal the kesuba kosher. It's mashma that for writing it's kosher, meaning the next mission says a guy can't bring it. This mission doesn't say anything about a guy. So, but the next mission says a guy can't bring the get. So if a guy can't bring the get, it's mashma that a guy could write the get. But Tanya Avikacham possible, we have a brisa that says a guy is puzzled. So we answer again. Hahi Rebbe Elazar. That's going to Rebbe Elazar. Damar Edim Mesira Karta. He really only cares about the Edim to see that it gets handed over. Ve'ina Ksiva Lishma. And you need Ksiva Lishma, like we said. When Rebbe Elazar says the main thing is Edim Mesira of handing it over. So what does he do with the pasuk of the Kasav? So that means that the actual get needs to be written properly. The signatures don't need, right? So since you need ksiva l'shma, and when the guy is writing the get, he's not doing it for her; he's doing it for himself. So therefore, we can never. That's a machlokes. So at the end of the day, right now, the maskana of the Gemara is that it's a machlokes whether a guy is allowed to write a get if the Yisrael standing over him. Okay, we'll stop here. Again, just a reminder, tomorrow night, hopefully, be'erich, regular time, possibly a little later. All right. Have yourselves a fine night.
Thanks. You
Thank you. I don't think so. Go run and get yourself a monitor.
You can all get it?
They probably start late because there's probably very few people. We'll see them across the street. What do they get? You know, they're yearly seeing.
Where are you diving?
I have to give Shir and Shayosha. If they're anywhere, if you get moving and you're anywhere like where I can catch up, so
I'll let you know. I'll text you.